Welcome to Maine. We're stretched to the bone. Prices keep rising. The paycheck stays prone. Inflation keeps knocking. Won't leave us alone. They're selling the lie. Groceries climbing. The gas tank is low. The bill's hitting harder than snow. But silence still blankets the truth. Where does it go? They're selling the lie. Housing is gridlocked from Portland to the county. Workers commute far past what feels soundly. Talk of solution comes yearly, not loudly. They're selling the lie. They're selling the lie. Say every voice counts, but watch who gets lifted. Some stories vanish, some get the spotlight shifted. Depends on what trends and what keeps them gifted. They're selling the lie. I won't believe them, I wanna believe, but truth's always stuck in between. Static and spin, drown the signal again. Nothing is what it seems. I wanna believe you, but every headline turns daylight into redesigned skies. Facts get twisted, context missing. We choke on the simplified alibis. Wanna believe you, but all I see is shadows where the answers should shine. The fact is fiction.
Welcome to the Muddy Waters Podcast, where Mainers tell their stories, unfiltered.
Good evening, Maine. This is Chuck Ellis, and you are watching the Muddy Waters Podcast. As usual, we are here to help the people of Maine better understand what's going on in our state. Unfortunately, we live in a state, in a nation, really, where the mainstream media has become a propaganda arm of the Democrat Party. So we are here alongside obviously the incredible work that the Maine Wire and Steve Robinson and now John Featherston are doing, and others who work over there, as well as Unquirer and Maine.X community, to help do what we can to add to the conversation and share people's stories. Stories are really a lot harder than facts and statistics. People don't buy facts and statistics now. Logic and reason are thrown out the window, but people's stories carry value. And it's really hard for people to say that's not happening when we have people telling stories of, their own stories. And so today, this evening, I should say, we have with us a guest, Nathan Reardon, to kind of tell his story of what happened to him. We've labeled this Lawfare in Maine because that's what it relates to. So thank you for joining us, Nathan.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, Lawfare is really interesting because right now, obviously under the Trump administration, the arguments and the claims that are coming out in the mainstream media and from the left, in coordination, obviously, are that Trump is weaponizing the justice system, when in reality, I think he's actually just trying to make the justice system do what the justice system is supposed to do. Sure. And it's just one of those crazy, gaslighting things that the Democrats are constantly doing to us, when we all know the lawfare that was happening under the Biden administration. We had a conversation a while back. It's been a little while. I remember many parts of it, but not all the details. But I wanted to have you on to be able to share your story of what happened to you. And how you were essentially targeted as a result, you believe, of your political views. So tell us what happened what's your story? Where do you come from and why? Yeah, I guess I usually like to have people say, where do you come from? And what got you to a place where you're having, political conversations, we'll say, in the public sphere, but what's your story?
I used to be in Bangor, Maine, but I've left that city because it's a liberal cesspool run by corrupt government at all levels, and it's staggering. I never would have known exactly how bad it was unless I had actually been put through the ringer myself. I'm not saying that I am happy that happened, because I'm certainly not, and nothing justifies it. But been a business owner since 1999, so I've got over 26 years in business. Multiple different businesses. I've run automotive centers most of my life. I'm an ASC Master Tech, one of the highest UTI certified techs that has ever graduated there in over 50 years. I've run restaurants, I've run convenience stores. I currently own residential real estate apartments in several different cities all throughout the state. I have had um, an unfortunate series of events with the government that I never envisioned. My father always raised me to respect the FBI and the CIA and just even local law enforcement and everybody. They have a very difficult job. I was always taught that the FBI is the highest trained, they're the most fair, they're the most just, they're um, elite. That's what I was taught. And I have found out that is not true. That is factually inaccurate, and it is full of corruption. And they are really, really good at what they do. So all the way through 2020, been running my businesses, had no any sort of significant issue at all. I was 44 years old and I'd never spent a night in jail for anything ever. I'm not a troublemaker. I'm not a criminal. That's not what I do. I actively avoid crime and have my whole life. So some of my staff at one of my restaurants in Newburgh had called me and they said, there are some guys here with badges looking for you. And I was like, give them my cell phone number. And they're like, okay. So I had probably 11 or 12 of my staff at that location training. We had just opened up a restaurant there a couple months prior, and we were growing. Everything was going really well. We were training for some expansion. So they called me and they said, they called me from a private number and they said, where are you? And I said, my office is in Bangor. Here's the address. Come see me, right? So they come and show up and they show up in this black SUV and the two guys get out and very imposing and they come inside and my office at the time wasn't open to the public. And so they came inside and I locked the door and they got really nervous. They said, why'd you lock the door? And I said, I always lock the door. I said, is there like a problem here? Like, what are you guys even here for? Right? And so he said, do you have any lawyers? I was like, I've got a lot of lawyers. What do I need a lawyer for? I've got real estate lawyers. I've got tax lawyers. I've got contract lawyers. I've got what do I need a lawyer for? Well, you're the target of an investigation. I said, can you elaborate? Yeah, well, you're under investigation for bank fraud. I said, well, let's talk because I don't do bank fraud. That's not what I do. So let's chat. They said, no. If you have lawyers, we can't talk. Have a good day. And they just gave me a letter and walked. I said, okay, that's a little weird, right? I asked for a card or anything like that. No, they wouldn't give it to me. No, can't do that. So prior to this, these people had showed up at one of my former employees' homes at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night. I don't remember exactly when it was, but she was very intimidated by these people. And I have the text messages on my phone still. She said, these guys are here and they're very imposing and they're saying that they're investigating this stuff and blah, blah, blah. I said, I don't stress out about it. We've done nothing wrong, right? There's nothing to be upset about. She was the one that was actually doing my book work at the time. She was running my QuickBooks and my payroll and things of that nature. So they went directly to her first, I guess, to try to squeeze her or whatever they do. So she was very intimidated so much that she actually quit, right? She worked for me for probably about 2 years at the time. I don't remember exactly, but somewhere around 2 years. And she quit because she didn't want anything to do with it. So I said, all right, that's that. And I thought that was the end of it. I didn't think I was ever going to hear anything about it again. I said, let them run their investigation because I don't have anything to hide. I have nothing to fear. I'm an open book, right? So I started contacting friends of mine that had some run-ins with the law in the past. And I asked him, I said, do you have a lawyer that can talk to these guys for me or something? I don't even know what this is about. They're saying I'm investigated for bank fraud. And I said, I've only had one bank loan in my life. I took the PPP loan out. But I said, it's a real business. I have real employees. I don't even understand what they're alleging I did. I don't even know what they're saying. They're just saying that they think that I committed bank fraud, right? So I said, start investigating. And I had a bunch of different people tell me a bunch of different lawyers, contacted several of them. Hunter Tavares was brought up to me as a good lawyer. I had heard his name prior. I'd seen his name in the paper, and I had heard that he was a pretty prominent lawyer and had gotten pretty good results. So I was like, well, I'll hire him, and he can just fix this, right? I mean, there's nothing to hide here. There is no crime here. There's no way this is going to become a problem. I was 100% confident, right? So we talked, and I explained the situation to him, and I gave him records that I had, and I said, "This is my business is 100% above boards. I pay people on W-2. Everything goes through QuickBooks, so I have records of everything that I do. I have every email, every text message, every receipt." I said, "I'm not afraid to, I don't hide anything." So he said, "Don't stress out." He's like, "The worst thing you can do is stress out over this." He says, he says, "It's a witch hunt. They're just, you're prominent in the area. They're just looking into you. You're the first Mainer charged with PPP fraud. You're." So he said, "Don't stress out about it." And I said, "Well, I am stressed out about it because I'm not a criminal, and this is very stressful to me because I've never been through this process like this before." He said, "Don't worry about it." He says, "You're not going to spend a night in jail. This is not going to go anywhere. It just isn't going to go anywhere, right?" So, time went on, and they offered me. They said, "You're facing 30 years in jail because you borrowed $59,145. So you're facing 30 years in federal prison." And I'm like, "What? 30 years in federal prison for a loan that can just be paid back?" I was thinking, this doesn't make any sense. And then I'm running through the videos and all the different things that they did as propaganda for the PPP loan. And Ted Cruz was on TV, and all these guys were on TV, and they said the PPP loan is designed to cover payroll and related expenses in business, and if it doesn't cover related business expenses, it doesn't get forgiven. It gets converted into a low interest loan, and you pay it back. And you have a certain period of time that you have to pay it back in. And so this is going to be a problem because I have plenty of expenses. I had actually taken on two big properties in January of 2020 before we even really knew what COVID was. And so we were kind of headstrong getting ready to do some fairly substantial renovations to these properties that were grossly dilapidated. And so we started going through this process, and then all of a sudden I was indicted, and then they said, "Well, if you'll just plea, you can just do 3 years, and you'll be fine." I said, "What do you mean 3 years? I didn't commit a crime. I'm not going to do 3 days. I'm not. No, I'm not going to plea." I said, "Can you relay the message to them that I'm not going to plea?" He said, "Yeah, I'll relay the message." So I relays the message, and so after I wouldn't accept their plea, then I get a phone call from my lawyer Hunter that says they want to do a bail amendment hearing. I said, "What do you mean a bail amendment hearing?" "Well, you're on PR bail, and they want to amend it, and they want to change two things. They want to make it so that you don't have access to one of your employees, so you can't talk to them anymore. And then they want to make it so that you can no longer carry a firearm." I said, "Okay, the employee that you're talking about has been working for me for like 5 or 6 years, had nothing to do with the loan. It didn't sign anything on the loan, didn't have anything to do with the paperwork on the loan, literally had nothing to do with, he didn't even know how much it was, right? But he was an integral part of my company. He was my IT guy. He was running my websites and my applications and stuff. We were launching a competitor for Facebook called Liberty Social and a bunch of different stuff that they don't like. And for some reason, they wanted to stop me from talking to him. And I said, "This is lunacy. I can't talk to an employee of mine like this. There's no way this is going to stick, right?" And what is the theory for taking away my firearms? I had concealed weapon permit in Florida, Maine when it was required, and in New Hampshire without ever having any issues for ever since I was 18. I was almost 45. I had multiple firearms, a bunch of ammunition. I've never had any trouble with it ever, right? I'm a law-abiding citizen, right? I protect my family. That's all I'll do, right? And so they bring me in, and they try to block me from talking to the employee, and the judge said, "No, that's not. It doesn't warrant it." But they said, "We think that because you're federally indicted and you're under a lot of stress, that maybe we should take your firearms. So we're going to take your firearms from you." Okay? And Hunter brought up the argument, and he said, "You're setting a pretty..."
When did this happen? Just out of curiosity, what year?
2021.
Was this after the yellow flag law was in
I don't
place? Is that how they? Because like
I don't remember, to tell you the truth.
how could they take away your how could they take away your
They
guns
weren't
like
even they weren't
legally?
even saying that I was threatening anybody. My probation officer said, I didn't even know you carried. Because you don't need to know I carry unless you're trying to kill me, right? So, like, I don't brandish it. I don't play games with it. It's a serious item. I was trained by a former FBI agent, Charlie Rumsey, on how to protect my home and how to protect myself and how to obey the laws, right? I had taken personal protection courses
Hmm.
and all kinds of stuff, firearm training courses, safety courses, know your target and beyond. I'd done all the training. I'm not an idiot, right? But they took my firearms. They took them from me. And Hunter said this sets a dangerous precedent where anybody that has been charged with any sort of federal crime, and he wasn't even charged with a crime of violence. He doesn't have a history of violence. But anybody that is charged with a federal crime, that would set a precedent that you can take their firearms, and that's a Second Amendment violation. And they said, no, we're not.
Well, it's also a violation. I think it's also a violation of due process,
100%.
which is part of the problem with the new red flag law that
100%.
they've passed, is that it violates due process. Like you're innocent until
100%.
proven
That's
guilty.
what I said. I said, I
right?
haven't
Like,
even I haven't even gone to
that's
trial yet. You guys are taking my firearms from me that I've had for 25 years without incident. This is insane to me. I haven't broken any laws, right? And it wasn't even alleged that I was violent. It wasn't even alleged. They weren't even saying he was threatening anybody or acting in an aggressive manner or nothing. It never happened. So again, I was totally naive to this system. I had no idea about prison. I had no idea about DAs. I had no idea about federal court. I had no idea about the Bangor Daily News. I had no idea their power. So I said, they took my firearms, right? So then we appealed it, and it went from Judge Nivison to Judge Walker. And Judge Walker wrote a very eloquent speech about this. This isn't right. Nathan isn't violent, hasn't been violent, has no history of violence. It's unconstitutional to take away his firearms. You need to give him back. And I was like, wow, the system works. Here we go, right? So the PO was like, hey, congratulations, I already
Yep.
got your guns back, whatever. It doesn't make any difference to me. I just enforce what they tell me to do, whatever. And so 3 days later, nobody filed any motions. Nobody made any complaints that were public. And then all of a sudden, Lance Walker is sitting at home in his chair thinking, maybe I missed something with that Nathan Reardon guy. And writes another letter revoking my right to firearms. No new allegations, no new anything.
So who is this guy? What is
Walker
his
is
role?
the federal judge in Bangor, one of the lead federal judges. As a matter of fact,
Okay.
I think he's actually
So
one of the lead judges
he
in
just
Maine.
had. So he has the ability to just take away your
Yeah.
firearms.
So first of all, Nivison did it. He took away my firearms, and then Lance Walker gave them back. And he said, it's unconstitutional what you're doing. You have no reason to take them from Nathan. He has no history of violence. He hasn't even alleged, but even if he did this crime, it wasn't a violent crime. It's a paperwork error, right? And so you have no reason to take his firearms. 3 days later, he's sitting at home by himself in his chair, and he just has an epiphany. Maybe I need to look at Mr. Reardon again. And then just arbitrarily takes away my right to firearms. Interesting, right?
So I know that you've got tons of story to tell. There are some other points that I want to get back into related to
let's
the
go.
bank stuff and kind of have some more conversation there. But before that, why are
They're
they
trying
doing
to squeeze
this?
you
Why
into a
would
plea
they?
deal. I had
like-
no idea how the system worked. It's a ringer.
But why? Like, why are they going? Why would they target you
I
in the
didn't
first
know.
place? Like,
I didn't know. I didn't know until I got 17,500 pages of discovery information while I was sitting in prison being held without bail. I had no idea why they hated me. I didn't know why. Well, I found out why. So in my discovery, they had text messages between me and one of my board of directors that said that Hillary Clinton should be in prison because she deleted 33,000 subpoenaed emails. And how do you do that and not be a criminal? It was under subpoena and you destroyed it. You actively destroyed it and you went through multiple layers to destroy it. You are a criminal, right? Okay, bad. That's bad. I'm a Trump supporter. Aaron Frey has said it publicly. He said it in the newspaper. We have to find the Trump supporters and we have to make sure that they can't continue his agenda. He said it in the newspaper. It's not hearsay. Okay. then Lizotte, Andrew Lizotte, the corrupt district attorney. That's my opinion, and we're proving it now. And they hate it. They are denying every FOIA request at every level. I have 18 cases before the First Circuit Court of Appeals right now because they won't even get to a evidentiary hearing locally because there's corruption, rampant corruption at all levels. Okay, so they won't even hear it. First Circuit has already struck him down, and he's mad about it, and that's fine. So then they said, I'm a scumbag because I gave $10,000. I donated $10,000 to my church in 2020. I'm a scumbag. So I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian. And I'm a Trump supporter who thinks that Hillary Clinton should be in prison. I am too dangerous to walk the streets, Chuck. I'm too dangerous. I'm a father of 5. I've been in business for over 2 decades, setting up businesses and employing people all over the place, right? And I'm too dangerous to walk the streets because I support Trump, right? Trump. And because I'm an active giver to my church. I cannot be trusted. And I cannot walk the streets. I have to go to prison.
So this was included in the, you said that 1,700 or
17,500 pages of discovery
so
for a
this is
$59,145 loan. It's insane.
So they're mad for you giving to your church.
They hate me.
Okay.
I'm a piece of trash. And I said, hang on. I said, I actually gave in the past probably decade or so, I've given away 2 cars as well to people that needed them and asked for nothing in return. Make sure you tell them that too so you can know fully what a scumbag I am. Oh, and I've actually physically volunteered at my church to package food to send to Haiti to people that need it. Make sure you tell them that because if you want to know how big of a scumbag I am, make sure and tell the whole story. I've helped a lot of people, right? So we need to make sure that that's clear on how dangerous I am, right? So I didn't. So they're trying to force me into a plea. So they take the guns, and then at the hearing they say my lawyer says you should seal this so that people don't know that Nathan is walking around with large amounts of cash from his businesses and doesn't have defense. You should seal this. And you know what their logic was? Well, we can't set that sort of precedent. You can set a precedent that anybody who's under federal charges can get their guns taken away, but you can't set the precedent that you can seal a case that nobody needs to know about. Interesting. So then after they took the guns, then they come back to me and they said, oh, hey, since we got your guns, you want to talk about a plea deal, Mr. Reardon? How about 2 years? Just do 2 years. It's just 2 years. Who cares? It's 2 years. Just take the 2 years and go about your business. Just take the plea deal. I'm not taking a plea deal. And I said, I guess you didn't understand it the first 6 times. I'm not taking a plea deal. Okay. So my lawyer says, don't worry about it. There's really nothing else that they can do. It took away your firearms. You're going to get them back. Don't worry, no stress out about it. Just go about your business, continue your life. Don't put your stuff on hold. Don't do any of that stuff. Just move forward. So I'm moving forward. So I'm in my office up in Bangor. I was in the Sears building in Bangor. And in my office, sitting there by myself, all of my other assistants were at other locations. One of them had my car. He was out filling up gasoline and doing a bunch of different stuff. And I had several other assistants that were at one of our other offices downtown Bangor. And I was there at the Sears offices by myself. So I'm sitting there, and 2 guys come in sweatshirts. And they said, you're under arrest. I'm like, 4? And they wouldn't tell me. And they wouldn't even identify themselves. So he tried to throw me over the desk, and he couldn't. And I stood back up and I said, I need you to identify yourself. Okay? If you're a law enforcement official, I need you to show me you're in here in a sweatshirt and jeans. Who are you? Right? Okay? So after he couldn't throw me over my desk, I'm not a wimp. I'm a 2nd degree black belt. Okay? So after he couldn't throw me over my desk, all of a sudden then they wanted to identify themselves. And then when they identified themselves, I went with them. I said, okay, fine. You guys are marshals. Let's go. Right? So I said, can you tell me what I'm being arrested for? And they said, no, we'll discuss it when we get downtown. I said, okay, this is wild. Right? So I go and I get taken downtown. And they said, they put me in a room so I could have a Zoom call with a lawyer. I said, what are they alleging I did? And they said, well, you violated your bail conditions. I said, what bail condition did I violate? And they said, well, your bail condition says you're not allowed to seek any COVID-19 relief-related funds. I said, well, I haven't applied for any funds at all, let alone COVID funds. This ought to be an easy win. He's like, well, this is what they're saying. Since your tenant in your apartment in Howland paid you with CARES relief money, you violated your bail conditions. I said, excuse me? I said, I didn't apply for the COVID-19 money. I'm the landlord. He paid me rent from COVID-19 relief related funds. As a matter of fact, on the application, they made me prove that I was a real landlord because they didn't want to get scammed. So I had to fill out, I think it's called a W-9. And it just shows who, like, you have to have your federal ID number and you have to have all this different stuff to verify that you're a real business. So on this, it says, are you applying?
Right. And it's because, like, because I'm a landlord and I had tenants pay me this way in like 2020, 2021, something like that as well. And you have to fill out that W-9 because rather than giving the money to the tenant, they give the money directly to the landlord, but it's on behalf of the tenant. The tenant is the one seeking the funds. You're not doing it on their behalf. So that's like, this is like you were not seeking COVID-19.
It was on the
money.
application. Are you applying on behalf of the tenant? And I checked no, because I didn't even initiate the conversation. And I have all the emails where they contacted me and said, this individual is living in your apartment. He's applying for COVID-19 relief. Are you a real landlord? Is he really living there? And verify. So I verified. Okay. And then they took me to jail. And so this is a whole big mess. While I'm sitting in there, okay, so they revoked my bail. So now I can't even pay $200,000 and go home. So now I have to go to jail and sit there until I either take a plea deal or I go to trial and win, which could take years. Okay. So there were two police officers from the Hancock County Jail in Ellsworth. I was in the Bangor Federal Building. Okay, that's a 45-minute drive minimum. Okay, and they were there waiting for me before my trial was over. And they're understaffed by 30%. They don't have enough people to even run the jail. But they had two people sitting there waiting to pick me up before I was even found guilty. So I said, here's the situation. I'd like to see when you made the order to have Ellsworth come pick me up, when you knew I was guilty, because you didn't even let me tell my side before you determined I was guilty. It's a due process violation. And they said, there's no reason for you to have that information. Why is there no reason for me to have that information? The federal government is 100% immune. We don't have to do anything. We're the feds. Here's the problem. You're put in charge of people's lives. This isn't a game. You have a tremendous amount of power to destroy people's lives, and you ought to be seeking justice, not a win. And they were doing nothing but seeking a win with me because I was prominent. So they gave articles to the Bangor Daily News to crucify me and make sure that I couldn't have a fair trial. So they forced me to sit in jail with no bail, and they were actively smearing me in the Bangor Daily News, like 6 times on the front page, top fold of the Bangor Daily News. I didn't kill somebody. I borrowed money that I could just pay back, right? And I offered to pay this loan back before they even indicted me 6 times. I said, I'll just pay it back. Like, if you even think it's wrong, I'll just give it all back to you. If I got to sell assets, I'll sell assets. Like, I'm going to give it back to you immediately because I'm not going to play this game. I'm not a criminal, right? But
so let's go back, because there's a couple of things here that I think it can be easy, right? If you're at home, I mean, I think there's a lot of us that are like, yeah, no, since 2020, the whole world has just kind of seemed to have gone crazy in so many different ways. So there are some people, I think, on the one hand, could just absolutely believe any story that's told because, geez, anything could happen at this point, right? Like, I used to describe 2020, what things are like since 2020 is like being in a dryer on the spin cycle where you do this and then you stop and you're like, oh, okay, this is up and this is down. Now I know. And then it starts spinning again, right? Like it's like that's what life is like. And so for people like that, it's like, I mean, anything can happen. I could believe anything. But on the other side, I think there are people who are a little bit more skeptical, right? And I think they're I think that it's worth kind of asking some additional questions. So you've mentioned that one of the reasons that you think that they've kind of gone after you is because you're prominent. Like, what do you mean by that in the Bangor area? I'm not from Bangor. I'd never heard of you before. Somebody gave me your contact information and said, he's got a story to tell. So like, what do you mean that you're prominent?
I've been in business almost my entire adult life in the area. I've been on TV. I've been in multiple interviews. I've been in TV commercials. I've radio commercials, interviews. I've done all kinds of different stuff. I was, advertised our company. We were number one in multiple different categories. Every time Market Surveys of America came out, my name has been, in the area, and I'm not like a celebrity or anything like that, but I'm known, right? I mean, I do business in the area.
Yep. You're a known
I've
entity.
known, right? And so when my name gets put in the paper, it sells newspapers, right? So something I found funny was they were trying to talk to this employee of
Yeah.
mine, and they said, "We want to do, an interview with you. You want to talk to us." And so he messaged me and he said, "Hey, these guys want to do an interview with me. What should I say?" And I said, "Just do the interview with them. You got nothing to hide. Just go, like talk to them and do your thing and get them out of your life. They're going to find out very quickly that you had nothing to do with it. They know you didn't. They're just digging." So he contacted them and he said, I'd like to go ahead and do the interview. You guys can come over to the office and do the interview with me." And they said, "Oh no." They said, "We're not going to the office." And he's like, "Why not?" And they're like, "Well, there's audio and video recording in every office in that building." Okay, you're a federal agent working for the Treasury, and you want to interview a person, and you're concerned about being on camera. That is wild. So he said, "Lose my number. Don't call me again." They said, "Oh no, you can come down and talk to us down by the mailboxes, down by the front, because there's no cameras down there." Really? Okay. Now I'm thinking, this is insane. This is out of a movie. This is insane. So I call Hunter, and he's like, "No, this isn't unusual." He said, "I've had him coerce, plea deals or guilty pleas on non-recorded interviews when my client said I didn't admit to anything, and they come out of the interview saying, 'Oh, he admitted to it.' And then it's a federal agent's office, a federal agent's word against yours." And I'm like, shouldn't they all be wearing body cams like 24 hours a day to make sure that everything that they do is fair and nothing, they're beyond reproach? I didn't say that. I didn't do that. You didn't do that, right? There's no allegations that can be made against anybody, whether it's a federal agent or a whack job criminal, right? No, they don't want to do that. So then he said, "I want to talk to you ever again." They said, "Haven't you heard all the negative press about him? Haven't you read the papers?" Let me ask you a question. What does a federal agent from the Treasury in Boston know about local news in Bangor, Maine? You think they read the Bangor Daily? I doubt it. Do they plant stories? Clearly. So they plant these stories. They fabricate these stories to smear people to get them into a plea deal. So my entire time through this federal system, I've been hearing everybody saying the feds are like the best. They have an 85% conviction rate. They are savage in court. Stop. No, not true. They force people into plea deals out of fear. That's what they do. Okay? People like me that don't understand.
I would go beyond the. It's not just the feds. I think it's much more.
It's
justice
system
so much.
Wide. Forced pleas.
The justice system is a very, very broken. I have personal knowledge of somebody in a situation here in the state of Maine who I was very close to, who was, it seems like from everything, like as I've analyzed the situation, they were coerced with the help of their lawyer into taking a plea deal for something that they did not do, because otherwise they wouldn't have, they would have a longer road back to having
it's identical to what happened to me.
Situation. They didn't do anything wrong. And so and that's why I want to highlight this, because it can be easy for people to say, okay, This guy's crazy, right? But this is something that does happen, unfortunately, here. Some people who've gone through it are like, yeah, no, we know. But it is something that happens. And a lot of times the DAs are making deals with the defense 100%. Attorneys to, we'll give you this one, and I'll give you that one. I heard it my
entire time all this through prison. They throw 3 guys under the bus and they get the guy that they want. Or they give 3 good deals to these guys and they give this guy the harsh deal. It's a game, and they're basically playing chess with people's lives, and it's insane to me that this can go on. Look, here's the situation.
Well, it's because it's become so politicized. Right. I mean, the justice system, this is where, I mean, I'm not advocating moving to Florida, but if you do, I understand. I want to win here in the state of Maine. Part of why I do what I do is I'm trying to get enough people to know what's going on, to be able to push back and like get the right people elected so that we can change
100%.
things here. But like, in Florida, DeSantis, got rid of like one of the activist judges who, like, not the federal activist judges, but the DAs, I should say, who was not prosecuting crime, because that's one of the problems that's happening is they're not prosecuting crime, and then they're selectively prosecuting it. Yes, well, that's down here. We've got the wonderful, lovely Jackie Sartoris, who spouted some wild conspiracy theories about like who had actually killed Charlie Kirk, and a number of other things, and just is like incredibly. She was trying to position herself. She saw us back, but she was trying to position herself as being like more of a moderate. But when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, since then, she's just is like, it's all on the table. And she has exposed herself as being like as far DSA as you can be, and very, against, the Constitution. And this is a huge problem that we have here in our state and here in our country. Anyway, so I feel like it's really important for people to understand that that's a reality. If you're paying attention, this. One of the other things that I want to kind of go back to, because I think there's a lot of people that have PPP loan. What does that even mean? So I worked in banking for 15 years, and I actually processed a whole bunch of PPP loan applications. So I was working with small businesses like you, and basically these were loans that were given to businesses during COVID so that they could afford to maintain their employees as part of their payroll. Like, the idea was, we're forcing people to shut down. We want to make sure employees stay connected to their employers so that those businesses don't completely go under. And when things open back up, the employer is still connected to the employee, if that makes the employee is still connected to the employer. And the parameters were very simple. We looked back at your like, depending on different financial institutions, I think, kind of used different processes to determine how much somebody was eligible for. But ultimately, it was looking at historic payroll. And based on historic payroll, this is how much money you get. And as long as you use it, there were a number of different categories. One of those categories was, and most businesses were able to use it completely for this category, which was just employee expenses, like paying their employees. But they could have, there are other things that also did qualify. But to your point that you said earlier, if you don't do it the right, if you don't qualify for full reimbursement, no big deal. You just have to pay.
It converts to a loan, not a felony.
Right. Right, exactly. And so, like, it's like when you first told me that you were being investigated by the federal government for a PPP loan because you supposedly didn't qualify for it or whatever, was mind blowing to me. I'm wondering, did they also prosecute the LA Lakers?
No, absolutely not. No,
why not? Because the LA Lakers applied for and initially got a $10 million. I believe,
absolutely, it happened all over the country. All over the country, multi-billion-dollar organizations.
Steak and Shake. I think is what it is. Yeah. Shake and Steak, whatever it is. They also got a number of their franchises.
Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
And so tons of these people. No, and then those organizations receive public pressure because everybody's like, you guys actually
billions of dollars in the bank.
Need this.
Small business.
Right. And so they ended up paying them back. They ended up paying them back. And I remember what was the name of it was Steve Mnuchin. I think was the name of the Treasury Secretary. Mnuchin under Trump at the time. He came out and he said these businesses should have known better. They should have known that they weren't eligible to apply. Well, this is my point. I was one of the people who was processing it. I was doing research. I was talking to people. It was he said it was clear it was actually not clear. All that was required was for you to assert that your business had been impacted. It didn't say even negatively in the verbiage. You had to prove that your business had been impacted by COVID-19. Well, I'm sorry, if you lived in the United States of America, your business
every single business was impacted, including Walmart.
Basically, if you're a business in existence, you're impacted, you're basically eligible for this according to the way that it was written. And so, like, you were eligible, you applied, and like, let's talk through this. So you use the funds to
Yeah,
pay your
my
employees.
banker said, you get this loan, Nathan, I think her name was Julie or something like that. She worked at the TD branch on Exchange Street in Bangor. And then, and I don't know what happened, and I never really got to the end of it, but I told Hunter, I said, she needs to be subpoenaed because she was the one that pressured me into getting the loan and told me that they get kickbacks for getting the loan, right? And then he said, oh, she's dead. I,
Which is true. The banks process the loans. These were
yep,
SBA loans funded
through the
completely
SBA. It
through the
wasn't through
SBA,
TD
and they
Bank.
were just processed. Right, it was processed through the banks, and the banks received a certain
Yeah,
percentage fee. They actually later on structured it so that banks made more money on
yeah.
smaller loans
She
than the
took
bigger ones because they wanted to
she
make
s-
sure that the
she
smaller
said she
businesses
said she
were
said take the loan,
more.
and I
Yeah,
said I don't need the loan. I said I'll be fine, and she said, well, the times are so uncertain, Nathan, and she just sold it. And she's like, well, we get kickbacks, and we don't know what's happening, and the banks are in trouble, and everybody doesn't know what's going on. They're pushing us to process these loans quickly and efficiently. Like if you don't use it for payroll or related expenses like rent, utilities, and things like that, then you can just pay it back, and it will convert over to a loan just loan. She said, you can't lose, Nathan. You can't lose. And I'm like, yeah, but I've never had a bank loan. I've been in business since 1999. I've never had a bank loan. Oh, come on, Nathan. It's like, help us out. Like, we're your banker. We're TD Bank. Look, we've been with us for years. Help us out, right? So, she's like, the money isn't coming from TD Bank. She's like, we're just an intermediary. We're just putting the money in your account for you because you bank here. But she said, we actually get paid. It's their money. It's the Fed's money. When we send you the application, you're applying with the SBA. I said, okay, well, whatever. So I ended up taking it. And what's funny is that I ended up hiring a massive more amount of people because I was in a situation that we were heavy under renovations on an 8-unit apartment building and then another building that was in downtown Newport. We're converting over residential real estate. And we had access to quite a few employees because a lot of people were getting laid off because they weren't considered essential. But construction in apartments was actually considered essential. So we stayed in business, and then I actually increased my payroll. So I borrowed $59,145, but I actually, when I applied for the forgivables, I actually had over $95,000 in forgivables. And so I actually doubled. So I could have taken double what I could have gotten, right? And then I have an actual email from the bank that says, Nathan, you are able to borrow up to $2 million unaudited. We won't even audit your payroll up to $2 million. I took $59,145 and covered my payroll for 6 weeks. I had to pay $250 an hour for a forensic accountant to go through my account. And throughout 2020, there was over $480,000 went through my bank. But I had to defraud the federal government of $59,145. I make that every 3 months. I had to defraud the federal government and go to jail and destroy my life and take first-time memories away from my children. And I had to destroy my reputation in the Bangor Daily News so that I can't even hire an employee anymore. Over $59,145. When I had 11 assets all over the state, the feds came unannounced to my locations. Unannounced. I didn't know they were coming. They went to 6 of my 11 locations before they found me. They know that I'm real. They know that I'm not a fake. They didn't even allege that I'm a fake. They didn't say he lied and said he had employees and didn't. They didn't say that the employee information was fake. And I told the judge, if you can find something on this $386,000 payroll, all right, I think it was 280, I think 280,000 that year for payroll. If you can find something, if you can find a fake social security number on this, or if you can find a name on this ledger that doesn't have signed, sworn affidavit employee documents with me with W-4s and everything filed, I'll eat my socks. I'm not a fraud. I'm not a fake. Everything I did is real, right? So what happened was the banker down in TD Bank, they said, I want you to do a projected 941 because your quarter hasn't closed. You didn't file it yet. So do a projected 941 with us. Don't file that with the IRS. And then when you close your quarter, go ahead and do the amended, and that's the one that you file with them. If there's a difference, we'll figure it out through the bank, right? And so what ended up happening was the submitted 941s to the bank, which they requested. Steve at TD Bank in Portland, I have the email. Okay, I asked for guidance the entire way through this, and Andrew Lazat, in all of his liberal wisdom, said the reason he was asking for all of these questions is because he was trying to defraud the federal government. And I said, you idiot, fraud is quiet. If you're trying to defraud somebody, you're going to be quiet about it, and you're going to try to do it underneath the rug. I'm going to draw the attention of the entire state of Maine TD Bank to my documents when I'm trying to defraud you for $59,145. Here's what's wild. $59,145. I got 20 months in federal prison. 20 months. Ended up being 29 months because I hate my guts. So I got 29 months in federal prison. There was a guy in Waterville that borrowed money, $1.3 million, on a fake business. Fake. Lied about employees, lied about everything. He got 18 months. I got 20. There was a woman in Bangor sentenced in the same court that I was sentenced in who stole money from a federally funded university. $500,000. Does not have the financial wherewithal when she got out of prison to pay them back. $500,000. She got 12 months. I borrowed $59,145. Now here's the real kicker. While I was being held in jail without bail, before I was sentenced, before I was ordered to pay back the loan, I paid back $10,000 of it, almost $10,000 of it, while I was sitting in county jail. But what's weird is that they said Nathan's broke. Nathan has nothing. Nathan has no money. He had to defraud the federal government because his business was failing. We can tell that he was failing. His payroll was only $1,400 during that quarter. That's a bold-faced lie. I had one guy working for me that was making $85,000 a year. One guy. I had 22 employees. This isn't a joke. This isn't a game.
So
here's what happened.
How is it that they were able to argue?
My lawyer did a terrible job. It's like he was working for them. I don't understand what happened because I don't think that Hunter's an idiot. I don't think he's stupid. I don't even know what happened. I'm trying to figure out what happened. And so now I'm suing him in court. I filed a $5 million litigation against him that's currently moving through the courts. They just had to assign it to a judge out of the area because of the hints of impropriety, right? So I'm suing him to try to get to the bottom of this because I got railroaded. I had appeal issues that were supposed to be brought up. I had integrity of the investigations. I had fatal structural errors that I brought to him, and I have the emails in 2021. I said, how do you defraud a bank when the SBA isn't a bank? That isn't a defense. It actually is a defense, and it's a federal defense, and it's precedent in the First Circuit in the Supreme Court. And then they changed the victim. They first of all said that I defrauded TD Bank. And then they made me do a plea agreement for 12 months and a day that said I defrauded TD Bank. And then when I got to my sentencing, Andrew Lazat, in the very last sentence of the 87-page transcript says, oh, for the sake of sentencing, we're going to put the SBA as the victim. All done, Your Honor. Hey, have a great day. And I said, time out to my lawyer. I said, hang on. This is exactly what I talked to you about. I told you TD Bank could have not been the victim. And they said, we're waiting for a victim statement letter from TD Bank, Your Honor. As soon as we get it, we'll submit it as evidence. You'll never guess where that letter is. It doesn't exist, Chuck. They never gave one because they knew it would be fraudulent if they did. TD Bank never lost any money. The government never lost any money. Okay. Right. So I said, how can you charge a person with bank fraud when they didn't even deal with a bank? That this was an SBA loan. This had nothing to do with the bank. The SBA is not, has not, and will never be a bank. Okay? Let's just get that clear. So then they changed the victim at the last minute. They changed it. And they said the SBA is a victim. Well, here's the problem. It's called constructive amendment. Okay? And there's First Circuit precedent and there's Supreme Court precedent that if you change something that structurally changes the victim or a major striking point of this. Now, if it was against TD Bank, it's bank fraud. If it's against the SBA, it could have never been brought as bank fraud. So it was brought as bank fraud against TD Bank. And at the very last minute, after I took a plea deal, after I had already served my time, after I had already done everything that they wanted me to do, jumped through all the hoops after they derailed my life with their machine, right? After I did everything they wanted me to do, all of a sudden it's a different victim. Constructive amendment. The law says, the Constitution says you have to go back to a grand jury and you have to re-indict them on the person that is in the end agreement. You have to redo it. If you do not, the law is clear. It says you must vacate the decision. It's not up to you. It's not whether or not you like him. It's not whether or not you're mad that he sent food to Haiti or gave money to his church. You have to vacate the decision. That's a First Circuit precedent. And now I brought this up to the local court. I brought this up to the local court. And I said, this is a fatal structural error. This needs to be vacated immediately. You know what they did? They sat on it for 9 months. Sat on it. Then they said, we need another 30 days to answer this because it's too complex. The First Circuit precedent is too complex. It says in writing, and this is what it says: if constructive amendment happens, you must vacate the decision. It is a fatal structural error. It is not open for interpretation. There are no footnotes. Okay, so it's too complex for these DAs. It's too, Your Honor, we need more time. Give us another 30 days. So they get another 30 days. They extended another 30 days without even asking me. That's another due process violation. I'm supposed to have the right to object. They asked for it, and the judge granted it the next day. They didn't even send me a notice that it was happening. They granted it. So they gave him another 30 days, and then their answer was, we think it's probably too early to determine if his constitutional rights were actually violated with a fatal structural error, because he has cases in the First Circuit Court of Appeals. So why don't we just wait for those to go through? We understand that he's on probation and he shouldn't be. We understand that this entire criminal conviction should be overturned. We understand that we're electronically monitoring him and we're disrupting his life with probation. We understand that we're restricting him to only being involved in the residential sector. But even if his constitutional rights are being violated, it's way too soon to figure out whether or not there was an actual constructive amendment done here. We should just wait. Let's just wait. Okay. Yeah, let's just wait. So it's, and then what they did now is they have filed a COK restriction against me, COK restriction against me, which says Nathan has sued the federal government, right? He's suing the federal government. We can't handle the docket. We're too busy. That's what they said in the letter. We can't handle the docket. He's overwhelming us with legalities. Now, you had plenty of firepower to come after me and destroy my life for 4 years, spending $500,000 in prosecuting a $59,145 loan that I'm paying back, putting me in prison and spending $150 a day, taking up a bed when violent criminals are raping, killing, kidnapping, drug trafficking, sponsoring terrorism, right? But I had to be in one of those beds, right? The overburdened BOP and Department of Corrections, but you had to put me in there. But now that I want to fight back, they put a restriction against me that says you can't file any litigation against the federal government unless we say it's okay. Excuse me?
That's
bizarre. And the First Circuit is reviewing it now. So the First Circuit has already struck down the Honorable Lance Walker because he said that Nathan can't be self-employed. And the First Circuit said, you've given no reason he can't be self-employed. And you know what's weird? The First Circuit is mostly liberal because they're in Boston. Most of the judges are liberal. A lot of them are Biden appointed. And I was told by Alan Dershowitz, who is well known and he understands Boston law. He said, do not expect anything good results from the First Circuit, Nathan. Like, it's very pro-government, very not defendant friendly. Don't expect good results. And when I texted him that, he was like, wow. They actually vacated his mandate. And they said, you've given no reason that Nathan can't be self-employed. He can be self-employed. Thanks. Right? And the way they worded it was, we're judges too, and we'd love to back you up, but you have gone so far outside of the law that we can't even stretch this taffy to make it look like you're right. You've said nothing, you've done nothing, you put nothing in here that we can even try to rub our magic fingers together and make this look okay for you. It is 100% wrong. We cannot let this stand because we're a court of law, right? Which you should be too. But we are a court of law, and you have given us nothing that says he can't be self-employed. Therefore, we vacate the decision. So I text my probation officer, and she's been really good to me. She's a great person. I have no qualms with her. There's been 2 people through this whole thing that have actually been fair with me, and one of them is Ashley Haddam, and the other one is my new PO, Brandon. And they've been very fair, and they made it clear. I'm not going to play games with you, right? Don't stretch the rules. Don't try to do anything stupid. Don't break any of the restrictions, and you're not going to have any trouble with us. Do as you're told, get through your probation, and move on with life. They're not actively trying to hurt me like the rest of them are. The others are actively trying to hurt me. And they will break the law, due process, constitution, none of it matters. Just as long as we can put Nathan on the front page of the Bangor Daily News and everybody can know what a scumbag he is. Because he believes that Hillary Clinton is a criminal. So just let me finish the story about Ashley.
Here's the question.
So I sent a text message and I said, so I'm allowed to be self-employed. And she said, yes, I believe that you are. She said, that's the way that I read it. But she said, let me verify with my bosses. Well, who's her boss? Lance Walker, right? The guy who's just crucified me for something that didn't even happen. So he goes back. The First Circuit made a mandate, and they said he's able to be self-employed. They struck his decision. The First Circuit overrules district. That's how the law works. Lance Walker told Ashley, nope, Nathan can't be self-employed. I don't care what the First Circuit says. He believes that he doesn't have to listen to the rulings of the First Circuit. He believes he's stronger than the First Circuit. He actually believes that. This guy was appointed by Trump.
Well, so just briefly, is this really surprising given the fact that we see this happening to Trump's executive orders all across the state, all across the country, where like these low-level, just recently appointed judges who don't have the authority to do the things that they're doing are trying to shut down, and the Supreme Court has come back and said you basically they've said that these judges should not be doing this, and yet they haven't stopped, and there's no consequences.
That's the problem.
And so I wish it was surprising, but it's just it's a frightening world.
It's
to
scary,
live in today.
I just wanted to. I tried to approach Walker as a human being, and just said, like, at least have an evidentiary hearing, and understand that you got a one-sided story. Initially I wasn't even blaming Walker, because Andrew Lazat is so slimy, and he's such a corrupt. Just when he walks in the room, you can like smell the grime on him. He's corrupt. He's just an evil person. He's nasty. He loves human suffering. It doesn't matter the level that it's on, as long as he's getting his win, as long as he's putting a feather in his hat. To hell with the law. You have a constitution. What is that? Can we read that? Nope, we can't read that. Can we interject it into our pleadings? No, we don't want to hear about that. We're not even going to have an evidentiary hearing. So initially I was thinking Walker just didn't get my side. So if I could just tell him my side, he would be like, you know what? We might have made a decision that was maybe wrong, right? Maybe not even totally wrong, but maybe just a little bit wrong. Maybe we went a little bit by the Bangor Daily News. Maybe his lawyer didn't really do a good job giving us the evidence to prove that the stuff that the DA was saying isn't true. Here's the wild part. The DA said my payroll was $1,400, okay? And then they were speaking out of the other side of their mouth. They love talking out of both sides of their mouth at the same time. It's a gift. I don't even know how they do it. So they said his payroll was only $1,400. And here's what we don't understand. Every 2 weeks, Thursday or Friday, every 2 weeks, Nathan would go to the bank and he would make very large cash withdrawals, $7,000 to $10,000. Where'd that money go? It's payroll. Genius, it's payroll. I have signed slips that I gave to Hunter to present it as evidence. Signed slips that says I was paid in cash on their W-2. I gave them their stub. Right? Everything was still processed through a payroll system. Taxes were taken out, W-2s were filed, everything was filed. But a lot of them, they were carpenters and all kinds of other people working for me. A lot of them didn't have bank accounts. A lot of them didn't want to have to go through the process of getting a check and having it sit in their bank account 2, 3, 4 days or whatever. Okay? Everything was in upheaval. The entire world was on fire. So I said, okay, we'll just make sure that they're not going to have any trouble clearing their checks and getting paid. And we'll give them cash for what they're owed. And they signed it. I received cash. And it was $7,000 to $10,000 every 2 weeks, exactly what I said it was. But they put in the evidence that it was only $1,400 in payroll because that's all that went through the bank in checks.
Right. So a couple of questions, because I worked in banking, again, as I mentioned, for 15 years, and it is not a normal thing. I will highlight, like, for a business to do. It's not completely out. It's not something that never happens, right? Especially depending on the type of business that you're talking about. If we're in construction, sometimes this type of thing can happen, that people will pay their employees in cash. But it's not normative, and just if you're at home, I wouldn't recommend it. Like, sure. but like I think the part that I want to highlight from our conversation before, like, the people that they didn't just sign affidavits, they also got W-2s and paid taxes on the money you paid them. And so
179
like
W-2s, I think, that
they
year.
paid
179.
they paid taxes based on the money that you gave them in cash. They affirmed, like I think you said, they did affidavits swearing that they received
Yeah.
these funds, and they paid taxes
Yes,
on
and they
these
received the
funds,
W-2.
required, and they received their
Yeah.
W-2, and yet they're still rejecting that because it didn't come out in the form of checks. Here's a question: are you legally required to pay employees in the form of a check
Paying
in the
people in
United
cash is not
States?
illegal.
Okay.
Paying people under the table is illegal. Everything was processed, and they were signing the actual pay stub that showed the amount of taxes that were taken out. And I have actual copies of those with a signature on them.
And you paid the
Yes.
taxes
It was
on their
gone. Everything
essentially
was
on their
gone. Everything
behalf,
was
but
going
your
through the
behalf.
government. Yes.
And that didn't sway
To
them in
hell with
court.
the evidence. This doesn't fit our narrative, Chuck. We're not going to bring that in. And my lawyer didn't even admit it. My lawyer didn't even admit it. He said there was $1,400. It was in the indictment that it was $1,400 payroll. And I was like, BS. Show the stubs. I sent them to him. Show them. They never got admitted.
So there's so much of this that just makes my head kind of spin a little bit. So again, $59,000 approximately, 59,154, I think you said. In a little corner of Maine, I mean Bangor, Maine, sure, but what in the world? Like, why are the feds targeting? Like, I understand, like you're prominent in Bangor, but it's Bangor, right? Like,
I don't understand. I don't understand. You spent $300,000 investigating me. You spent $200,000 putting me in jail for a $59,145 loan that I paid back $10,000 of while I was sitting in jail. I only owe you $49,000. Let me pay it back. Like I didn't try to hurt anybody. I didn't try to defraud them. I didn't do anything. The loan wasn't even due yet. They put me in jail before the loan was even due to be paid back. And then they said he wasn't even, the DA said under oath, swearing to the judge, he said Nathan wasn't, his company wasn't entitled to a loan. It's in writing. It's in the transcript. He wasn't entitled to a loan. So I just came across a document a couple weeks ago. I've been siphoning through these tens of thousands of pages of documents. And so I get through it, and there's an email coming from the SBA in around, I think it was August or September of 22, while I was in prison. And the email says he was entitled to the loan. We just think that maybe the amount was off a few $1,000s. And so we need more documentation. It doesn't say he was not entitled to a loan. It does not say his business was fraudulent. It doesn't say his business was fake. They didn't even allege that. One thing they were very upset about was that I had like 6 or 7 corporations at the time. What does anybody need 6 or 7 corporations? Well, I have I have 160 patents that I'm working on. What is it? Any of your businesses? How many corporations I have? And all of a sudden, Andrew Lazard, who has never owned a business in his life, and Lance Walker, who has never run a business in their life, and they've never employed anybody in their life, all of a sudden they're the world's leading experts on business. How? Where did you go to business school? How many times have you run a business? You know nothing about this. I'm the expert. I've been doing this my entire life since I was 17. Okay? And I have actively avoided prison my entire life. I have been offered 50 times. People say you can launder money through your company. You've got hundreds of thousands of dollars going through your corporations. We could launder money through your legitimate businesses easy. We'll give you $10,000 a month to launder money through your accounts. No. Nope. And now you're not even my friend anymore. You lose my number. Don't even talk to me anymore because I'm not a criminal. I'm not going to do this. I support law enforcement. I support justice. Look, here's the situation. Prison is necessary. Law is necessary. Police are necessary. Judges are necessary. This is real. Okay? I'm not saying nobody should be punished. If you do something stupid, okay, and you intended to hurt people, you need to go to jail. You should go to jail, right? Jail is for separating people that are a danger to society. Take them out of society. They can't be here. They hurt people. Who did I hurt? I borrowed money from my business and I paid employees so that they could feed their kids and they could eat. Did I have financial trouble? Sure. Was I spending tons of money on projects all over the state? Absolutely. Did I have just $300,000 or $400,000 sitting in the bank waiting for a rainy day? No, absolutely not. But for them to give this flat out narrative lie that I had to defraud the federal government or I was going to have to close my doors. I've been in business since 1999 without you. I don't need your help, right? Did it help? Sure. Did it change the way that I do things a little bit? Sure. Because now the money that I would have normally used for payroll, I could use for other things, spending it on, different things that needed to be paid for, or expenses for the properties or things of that nature. Did it help? Sure it did. Did it change my life? Absolutely not. I wouldn't take $1 million knowing that I was going to go to jail. I wouldn't take $5 million or $10 million. You know why? Because I know how to make money. I can make money on my own. I work 100 hours a week, right? I made my first million before I was 25. I'm not an idiot, okay? And to think that I'm going to take time away from the only thing in my life that matters to me, which is my minor children, 5 of them. My daughter was 1 when I went to prison. She almost didn't even know who I was when I got home. Do you understand what that feels like? I hope you never do, okay? It's the only thing. It's the only thing that matters to me.
Yeah.
Okay. And these rotten individuals didn't want to get to the truth. What really happened? Can you explain to us what really happened? Of course I can. Let's sit down and have a conversation. And my lawyer through the whole thing was like, don't you dare talk to them. Don't you dare rebut the newspaper. Don't you dare do press. Don't you? This is the first interview I've done since I was indicted in 2021. And you know what's weird about the timing? You know what's really weird about the timing? This alleged incident happened in the beginning of 2020. The beginning of 2020. April, May of 2020. You know when I got indicted?
Yeah.
You know when they came after me? Right after Trump lost the election. Weird. Why didn't they charge me? Why didn't they charge me when Trump was in office? Why didn't they charge me when there was a Trump DA running the feds in Maine? Why? Nope. There's a reason why. Because they wanted to come after me because of my political affiliations and because they didn't like me. I don't know any of these people. I had never had any dealings with these people. I didn't even know. You want to know the truth, Chuck? I didn't even know the federal court was in Bangor in the Social Security building. I didn't even know there was a court in there. I didn't even know it was there.
Me neither. Because this is news to me. Yeah, I'm not aware of these things because I don't go to court.
I don't go to court. I'd never been.
Yep.
I'd never been. So, like I said, it's to me, it's more disheartening because it's almost like finding out that Superman isn't a real hero. When you find out that these officials that have these really crazy credentials and these lifetime appointments and this massive amount of power, and they don't even bother to look below the surface. They dig until they find something that looks a little bit weird, and then they say, we got enough, let's go. Rather than searching all the way down to the bottom and saying, is this person really a criminal? Is this person really trying to defraud us? Does this really make sense? $59,145. They saw everything. They saw my accounts. They saw my businesses. They saw my employees. This is over a year after the alleged fakeness. And they just show up at my properties all throughout Maine. They drive up here, 2 officers from Boston, and they randomly ran into 20 of my staff members before I even knew they were looking for me. So it wasn't like this was some well-orchestrated scheme to like, put up smoke and mirrors. Hey, quick, make it look like we got employees. Like, they just showed up. I didn't even know I was even in trouble. And so it's like taking the wind out of your sails that these federal agents from Agent Pelham in the Treasury in Boston to the local judges, to the district attorneys, to the local lawyers, to the liberal dish rag Bangor Daily News, and they all work together in concert to destroy people's lives just because they believe differently. Look, here's the situation. I disagree 100% with everything. Almost everything, maybe not everything, but man, 99.9% of the crap that Biden and Obama ever did, I think that they're absolute idiots. Do I want to see them dead? No. Do I want to see them shot on live TV? No. Do I think they should be in jail for prison or in jail or prison for the rest of their life? I don't even know, right? I don't wish ill on my enemies like that. But when the liberal elite look at you and say you're different and you have a different opinion than we do, right? You believe in God and you believe in country and you love your country and you support your country. Trump's campaign was the first presidential campaign that I had ever contributed to, ever, because I believe that he could save us, right? Not like he's our savior, but I think that a businessman has a good head on his shoulders and he can get in there, and he's not a politician. We don't need politicians. We need workers. right?
Yeah.
We need people that know business and understand economies, right? I don't need somebody who's been in the Senate for 40 years and never held a private sector job. I don't need that, right? So it's disheartening to go through this process and have your life destroyed, where your every waking minute is trying to recover from the damage that the federal government has done to you and your children. My children now, if the probation officer or any of the people come to my house and they drive in, she was 3 years old at the time. When they pulled into the driveway, you know what she said? She said, "Hey, Daddy, the bad guys are here." I said, "What?" She said, "Daddy, the bad guys are here." I said, "Who's here?" And she said, "Probation." I said, "No, hon, they're not the bad guys. They're just doing their job, right? They made a mistake. They made a mistake. Okay, we'll fix it. We'll go to court. The judges will see this. They'll look at this at different levels, and they're going to fix it. It's a mistake. They're human beings. Don't hate them, right?" But when my daughter thinks that the probation guys and the federal agents are bad guys, that's sickening. It is sickening. They have destroyed my entire family's trust in the federal government. The only thing they've made me do is lose trust in the federal government. Did you teach me a lesson? I asked Walker, who did you help? Who did you save? You put 22 people out of work. You cost me millions of dollars in damages. You've destroyed my reputation that I don't know that I can ever recover from because I occupy the first 26 pages of Google, thanks to you and your liberal dish rag machine, Bangor Daily News, and the Associated Press. I made national news for a $59,145 loan for a real business. The feds didn't even allege that I took a 3-day weekend. They didn't say he went out and bought cars. They didn't say he went out and bought homes. They didn't say that he went out and do anything. The largest, most grandiose thing that they could come up with was, I bought my father a $380 set of Cayman skin boots for his birthday. 2 years prior to that, I bought my father an $8,000 roof for his Christmas. Okay? I put an $8,000 metal roof on his house. So, like, that's the biggest thing that they could come up with that was crazy. They didn't allege that I took a 3-day weekend, or I went on any vacations, or that I live an extravagant lifestyle, because I don't. I live like I'm broke. Okay? But it didn't fit their narrative. And so they paint this picture of you're a scumbag, you're a liar, you're a swindler, serial fraudster in the newspaper. Serial fraudster? I've had one bank loan in my life and I was coerced into it. Then I signed a plea deal for no more than 12 months and a day so that I could go home. And my lawyer said, you can just go home. You've already done your time. They held you here with no bail, Nathan. Just sign the deal. He said to me, do you want to fight the feds for the next 3 years? Or do you just want to go home and take care of your children? And so let me ask you a question, Hunter. Is it illegal for me to lie to federal agents? He said, yes. I said, they're telling me to lie and say that I intended to defraud them. That's a lie. You're telling me to lie so that I can go home and take care of my kids. Go ahead. Okay? Sign it. So I sign it. Then we go to court. The plea deal says no more than 12 months and a day. I go to court, and the first thing out of Andrew's slimy mouth is 24 months is what he should get. I just took a plea deal for 12 months and a day that you made. You printed it. I signed it. And he said, well, if you're not happy with my imposition, you can appeal it. By the time I appealed it, I was already home. I already done my time. They already got the time out of me. So they put me in prison. They milked me for time that I wasn't even owed. I signed a plea agreement, and they wiped their rear with it. They don't care about the law, Chuck. They don't care about the law. These are the people that are running our country. This is what I'm scared about. These are the people that have the right to take you and put you in jail for something you didn't do. And they will hold you there without bail until you plea. Without bail. For a loan. I didn't rob a bank. I didn't hurt anybody. I didn't lie and say that my business existed and it didn't. They didn't even allege that. Read the papers. Read the documents. It's scary. It's really scary. And I hope to God that new leadership gets in, and I hope that the Trump administration can do the job. I'm a little bit light on the current administration. I'm not 100% happy with people that should be in jail. They say we've got the evidence. Heads are going to roll. Where are they?
Yeah,
Right?
I can't say that I'm very excited about Pam Bondi. Honestly,
that's my concern too.
I haven't seen what I'd like to see. I think
totally agree.
if we're holding people accountable, we need to hold people accountable. I know that
100%.
both Hillary and Bill Clinton refused to show up to their subpoenas, and
They were subpoenaed, and then
yeah,
nobody, nothing's happening.
And when Steve Bannon did that, he ended up being arrested, right?
He went to jail.
He went to jail, and so like, is that going to happen? Are we actually going to prove that that there is justice, even
I don't know.
no
You know,
no
and
one
I
is
don't,
above the law?
and I
That's a
don't want to
great
see
question.
it on either side. I don't want to see it on either side. I don't want to see
I don't
Trump
want to
just
see
lashing out because he's
lawfare.
mad. I don't want to see lawfare. If you
Right,
break the law, you
regardless.
should be punished. But it shouldn't be
That's
because you're on one side or the other, or you did something against one of my friends. I don't believe in that. No side.
right.
We can't have a justice system in America that can be weaponized by anybody. Nobody. You can't
Right.
allow that. You're taking people's freedom away. You are destroying their lives and their reputations. You have to take this seriously. You have to get to the truth. It shouldn't be about a win. It should be about, is this person a criminal who is actively hurting society and can't be trusted in the real world? I'm an employer. I'm a father. I'm a businessman. I work 100 hours a week. I work more than most people for no pay because I believe in what I'm doing. I believe in providing nice housing for people, building things up, taking things that other people say can't be fixed and fixing them. I'm working on life-saving patents that detect a child in a car. If they're left there unattended, it will alert authorities with the GPS coordinates of where the child is so they don't have to die in the car. I'm working on things that can prevent cancer. I'm working on things that dramatically extend the lifetime usability of cars. I'm working on things that increase fuel economy. I'm working on a lot of things that are good for society. I'm working on no criminal enterprises. None. I'm not trying to hurt people. I'm not trying to harm people. I'm trying to feed my kids. I'm trying to pay my bills, trying to keep a roof over my head. I'm trying to build a legacy that my kids can be proud of so they don't have to work like I do unless they want to. And I'm a danger to society. I'm a scumbag. I can be defamed all over Facebook and all over social media, and people can just run my name through because they're going to get their 15-minute bump of fame. Because I fired them because I found them in one of my apartment buildings with a heroin needle stuck in their arm, throwing up in my tenant's bathroom that we were renovating. And so I fired them. And then they get on Facebook and they tell everybody what a scumbag I am. Nathan's a scumbag, right? Because it's free. You can get on social media and you can smear me. Well, here's the deal. It's not free anymore because now we're going to court. I have a new case right here that I'm getting ready to mail tomorrow. Slander case. Okay? I'm fighting back now. If you want to lie about me, I'm coming for you. We're going to go to court, and I hope you have $25,000 for a lawyer, and we're going to go to court because I'm not going to sit down anymore and let you destroy my life and just smile. My lawyer told me to do that, and that was stupid. I shouldn't have done that. I should have not taken the plea deal. I should not have listened to his advice. I don't know what was wrong with him, but he was grossly unprepared for my case. He should have won that in 2 seconds. He should have had the thing dismissed. I have letters to him from 2021 where I said, you can get this thing dismissed because of XYZ. He said, that's not a defense. It's Supreme Court law. Supreme Court law. So whether I win it at the district level, which I'm never going to do because they're too corrupt, whether I win it at the First Circuit level, which I think that the First Circuit is better handled to deal with this because they're not subject to the local press and they're not part of the local. They don't play golf with the DAs and stuff like this, right? I think they're better equipped, and if they don't handle it, I believe that the Supreme will. Will it take me a while? Maybe. Will it take years? Maybe. Will it cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars? Maybe. But here's the situation. I don't care if it costs me $10 million and it takes me 20 years. The truth is the truth is the truth. If I did wrong, and I tried to defraud the federal government, or I tried to do something slimy, and I got in trouble. And you know what? Probably 20 years ago, I did dumb stuff that I probably should have been punished for, and I never got punished for it. But I can tell you this: I didn't do what they say I did, and I'm not who they paint me out to be. I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. Have I made colossal failures in my life? Absolutely. I have made grossly wrong decisions and personal relationships and business relationships and employee relationships and all kinds of stuff. Sometimes I do knee-jerk reactions and they're not proper, and I make wrong decisions and I do things I shouldn't do. But you know what I'm not? I'm not a criminal. And I don't seek out criminal activity. I don't like criminals. I don't look after criminals. And I am just gut punched that our government that is supposed to be keeping us safe and enforcing the law and enforcing the Constitution rather than a personal agenda rather than being an advocate for their own personal agenda, it is really scary to see that side of the world. I always thought to myself when I saw people getting in trouble on TV, I was like, oh man, they're looking, what a criminal. Not everybody is. Sometimes they just go after people because they just don't like them for whatever reason. They don't like the way they look, they don't like the way they talk, they don't like what they stand for, and they throw every single resource at you. They will spend millions of dollars and hundreds of hours and overwhelming court documents and just an avalanche of problems for you. They will smear your businesses. They will shut you down. They were actively going to each one of my employees that were running my business, and they were souring them. They were going to each one of them and making them quit before I was even indicted. They went and they scared my top employees that were running my company for me, and they scared them so bad that they quit. Why are you doing that? If you're going to get me and it's a fair trial and we're just going to go fight it out in court and we're going to see who wins, what are you afraid of? Right? I wanted to transfer my case down to Portland because I thought I would get a little bit more of a fair shake, not because they're less liberal, they're more liberal, but there was less press down there. And so I said, they don't really get the Bangor Daily News down there, so I have a better shot at getting it. So we applied while I was in jail to get the case transferred down to Portland. And we gave 26 negative news articles in the motion to the judge, Lance Walker. 26 negative news articles, pages of links of the smear job on my name, and said, Nathan can't get a fair trial up here. You need to move the trial. You know what his response was? You haven't proven that he's prejudiced. You know what the Supreme Court says about this? Look it up. The Supreme Court says if somebody makes a motion and can interject any shred of evidence that they could potentially be biased, this is what the Supreme says, and it's in writing. Bias is presumed. Does not have to be proven. Bias is presumed. Move the case. He didn't move the case. You know what the Supreme Court says about that? That is a fatal structural error. You must vacate. You must vacate. I brought this up to Lance Walker. We went to an evidentiary hearing. Oh no, I'm sorry, we didn't go to an evidentiary hearing. He dismissed it. I know it's unbelievable because the last 21 cases that I brought against the federal government got dismissed on the first level, right? 18 of them are in the First Circuit right now, and 2 of them are getting ready to go to the Supreme.
Yeah.
It's wild that they get paid to destroy your life. And then you have to pay hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in legal fees, or you have to pay with your lifeblood, your own time, researching laws to find out how you got screwed. I don't want to be a lawyer, right? I don't want to fight in court. I don't want to be in court. I never want to see a court again in my life. But I have to do it. I have to fight them because if they go unchecked, they will continue to just destroy lives and destroy lives and destroy lives. Look, I'm not saying everything that they do is wrong. Sometimes they get it right. Sometimes they put away the bad guys, and they're putting away drug dealers, and they're putting away people that hurt children, and they're putting people away that deserve to be away. They absolutely do it. And I'm not saying that they're useless or that their job is in vain. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying rather than looking for a win, they should be looking to get to the truth. And if they're wrong, they should just admit it. I made a mistake. We didn't have the full story. We didn't know everything because your lawyer didn't do a good job defending you. We're sorry. It's that simple. I don't hate them, right? I hate what they did to me, but I don't hate them. But I'm scared because this is our country and I love it. America's awesome. Maine is awesome. Has been awesome. It's not awesome right now.
No.
But it's been awesome. Right?
There's a lot of great people and it's a great landscape and all that stuff. But obviously
incredible.
we've got some challenges here.
Sure.
Well, I just want to thank you for coming on and sharing your story. Obviously, there's a lot here. I'd be really interested to hear how things go as you proceed and hear back and we can
100%.
we can hear how those things go. But yeah, I mean it is scary. Again, like I can't confirm it. Like I can confirm my own experience that a lot of the things that you're saying match up with what I know to be true. And like, I think it's for a lot of people, like maybe aren't aware of the concerns with how this type of stuff can happen. I still am baffled at like why they would like target you specifically and that kind of thing. And again,
Makes no sense.
we right. And so unless they're like targeting mass amounts of people and you just happen to be one of the ones that get caught in the crosshairs so that they could try to intimidate enough people to, sit back in fear, who knows? I mean, that is within the realm of possibility. It seems a little, but either way, it's interesting. And I just thank you for telling your story. And
one quick thing, I ran the simulation of how much time I got per million, because that's how they judge the sentences on the SBA loans. So the average sentencing for someone that committed PPP fraud, actually committed it, it's 10 months for every million that they borrowed. That's the average punishment across the United States. Do you know what mine was?
A lot more than that.
388 months per million. 388 months per million. I got the most disproportionate sentence in the entire country. I'm a father of 5 who had never spent a night in jail in his life. I have no drug addictions. I have no alcohol addictions. I work 100 hours a week. I love our country. I love our state. I love God. I love my family. And I was dangerous, and I needed to be put in jail. It's staggering.
Yeah. Crazy. Well, thanks again. Everybody else will be back on next week. We'll see you. But like, share, subscribe. Look out for our shorts. See us on all the other areas of social media. We'll keep you up to date on as more information comes out with Nathan's court proceedings with some of the cases, Supreme Court, in other cases, the district, the Superior Court. So thank you again for coming on and for telling your story and for standing up for what you believe to be true. I think that's what's important.
All right. Thanks. Appreciate your time. Keep on going.
All right.
Have a good night.
Stick around for just a second, Nate.
No worries.
All right. See you all later.